There's something quietly magnetic about a man who hides his emotions. You sense it long before you ever hear it. It shows up in the way he watches you when he thinks you're too distracted to notice. His gaze holds a softness he won't allow in his words. His posture shifts ever so slightly when you walk into the room, as if some invisible axis inside him turns in your direction without his permission. He appears composed, relaxed, even slightly distant. But beneath that calm exterior is an unspoken intensity, a quiet storm he's trying to restrain. Most women expect that desire will announce itself boldly. They believe that when a man is interested, he will make it obvious. He will text first, plan dates, and declare affection without hesitation. But men rarely reveal emotion so openly. They've been conditioned their entire lives to maintain control, to lead with logic rather than vulnerability. They don't run toward the feelings that shake them. They guard against them. They bury longing beneath routine, humor, or work. They pretend not to care, not because they're indifferent, but because the depth of emotion unsettles them. So desire doesn't disappear. It finds subtler ways to reveal itself. It leaks through their gestures, their breath, their silence. It shows up in the small hesitations, the lingering looks, the sudden seriousness in their voice when they say your name. Once you learn to notice these cues, everything becomes obvious. There's no guessing, no wondering. His energy speaks long before his mouth does. You might have crossed paths with a man like this. Steady, grounded, thoughtful. The kind of man who rarely lets his emotions take the lead. Yet with you something shifts. You catch him staring, but when your eyes meet, he looks away as if he's been caught doing something he shouldn't. He asks questions that feel deeper than casual conversation, then changes the subject quickly, as if he went further than he intended. You sense electricity, but he covers it with sarcasm or a dismissive comment. You wonder whether it's real or just your imagination. It's real, because when a man desires you but tries to hide it, his composure betrays him. He starts paying attention in ways he can't rationalize. You notice it in how he remembers the smallest details, your favorite drink, the story you told months ago, the way you laughed at something he said. He might appear indifferent to others, but around you, he comes alive in ways he doesn't fully understand. His mind becomes more alert, his presence sharper, his energy oddly restless. His behavior isn't random. His emotions are in conflict with his logic. Men process desire differently. They fear not the connection itself, but the vulnerability it demands. Wanting someone deeply means losing a sense of control, and that loss is unsettling. So instead of revealing their feelings, they manage them. They regulate them. They hide them beneath behavior that looks like restraint, but is actually emotional overwhelm. What makes this dynamic so difficult to read is that men are taught not to confess vulnerability. They may joke, flirt lightly, or hover at the edges of your attention, but they rarely speak from the depth of what they feel. Not because they're incapable, but because that level of honesty feels dangerous. It exposes too much. It reveals the truth they're not sure you want to hear. So they communicate through energy instead. You feel it in the shift of the air when you enter a room. He could be in conversation with someone else, but the moment you appear, he becomes aware of you. His body angles slightly in your direction. His voice lowers. His eyes flick toward you instinctively. These subtle changes are impossible to fake. They come from a primal place, where instinct responds faster than thought. Even his silence speaks volumes. He might talk less around you, not because he's uninterested, but because his emotions are louder than his words. He's thinking too much, feeling too much, processing too much. Desire makes him cautious. He tries to maintain control of his expression, fearing that if he says the wrong thing, the truth he's holding back will slip through the cracks. Psychologists often refer to this as emotional mirroring. His subconscious begins syncing with your presence. He mirrors your tone, your pace, even your language, tiny, unnoticed echoes of connection. It isn't intentional. He isn't trying to impress you. It's instinctive alignment. You've become an emotional stimulus he reacts to without thinking. The paradox is that the more he tries to hide his feelings, the more obvious they become. The restraint, the subtle tension, the small contradictions in his behavior. They all point to a deeper truth he can't articulate, and the woman who pays attention recognizes it immediately, not because she's searching for signs, but because his energy gives him away. And here is where desire becomes fascinating. For a man who guards his emotions, attraction isn't loud, it's quiet. So quiet, in fact, that many women miss it. They mistake subtlety for indifference, restraint for lack of interest. They overlook the tiny gestures that reveal what he's unwilling to say. A man who is trying not to show interest doesn't chase, but he doesn't disappear. He hovers at the edges of your life. He checks your stories, reacts to your posts, initiates small conversations that he pretends are casual. He positions himself near you without drawing attention. He offers help before you ask. He notices changes in your mood, your tone, your energy, your expressions. It's not an accident. It's emotional curiosity paired with self-protection. There is a moment every woman intuitively feels, the moment she senses that something unspoken exists between her and a man. A tension, a pull, a subtle gravity. You can't describe it, but you feel it. It's in the way he pauses when you speak, the way the room feels different when he looks at you, the shift in his breath when your hand brushes his. This tension is not your imagination. It's emotional leakage, desire slipping through the cracks of his restraint. And when that desire deepens, his presence around you becomes almost rhythmic. His attention comes in waves, warmth followed by retreat. He engages, then withdraws, not because he's unstable or unsure, but because the connection overwhelms him. He oscillates between wanting you and guarding himself. It's a dance between fear and attraction, control and surrender. Men rarely articulate this struggle. They hide the emotional chaos beneath calm behavior. But if you know what to look for, the truth becomes unmistakable. His words may be neutral, but his energy reveals everything. And what comes next is where hidden desire turns into unmistakable emotional pull. There's a moment that always reveals more about a man's hidden feelings than any words ever could. The instant he becomes aware of your presence. It happens quietly, almost imperceptibly. He could be mid-conversation, leaning casually against a doorway, scrolling through his phone or laughing with friends. But the second you appear, something in him shifts. He straightens subtly, his voice drops. His attention sharpens, not enough for anyone else to notice, but enough that you feel the energy change around him. That shift is instinct, not intention. A man who tries to hide his emotions is constantly monitoring himself. He wants to appear composed, controlled, unaffected. Yet the body betrays what the heart suppresses. His shoulders square, his breath deepens, and his subconscious angles toward you as if pulled by an invisible thread. It's not dramatic. It's not theatrical. It's simply real, and because it's real, he can't disguise it. His eyes give him away too. They linger just a moment longer than they should, tracing details he pretends he doesn't notice. The way you brush your hair back, the way your lips move when you speak, the softness in your expression when you're lost in thought. He absorbs everything quietly, as though memorizing pieces of you he'll replay later when he's alone. And if you catch him staring, he'll look away quickly, masking the moment with a neutral expression, as though nothing happened. Even though something very much did. Men who hide their desire are rarely straightforward. Their emotional world is layered. They want closeness, but they fear exposure. They crave connection, but they're cautious of disappointment. So their feelings come out sideways, through subtle signals rather than direct confession. The closer they feel to you internally, the more distant they may appear outwardly, because vulnerability disrupts their sense of control. This is where their actions begin to speak louder than their restraint. One of the most telling signs is how he tries to impress you without ever appearing to try. He may not shower you with compliments or make bold gestures. Instead, he'll casually mention something he achieved, a skill he honed, or a challenge he overcame, not to boast, but to show he is capable, competent, someone worth taking seriously. His posture becomes a little more confident around you. His gestures more intentional. He becomes more attuned to how he presents himself. even if he plays it off as effortless. Men are wired to display value when someone matters to them, not through grand displays, but through instinctive alignment with their best self. He might fix something without being asked, offer thoughtful advice when you're overwhelmed, or step in with small acts of service that seem spontaneous. He'll carry something heavy, open a door, or anticipate what you need before you say it. These gestures are subtle versions of ancient instinct, protection, support, provision, not because he thinks you can't handle life on your own, but because doing these things makes him feel connected to you. Yet even as he does this, he minimizes it. He'll shrug and say, "It's nothing," because admitting intention feels too vulnerable. Instead, he lets the gesture speak for him, hoping you'll notice the effort without forcing him to expose his emotions. But the most revealing indicator of desire, one, women often misunderstand, is emotional fluctuation. He might be warm, attentive, and open one moment, then suddenly distant the next. He laughs easily with you, asks questions, engages deeply. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, he withdraws into himself. He becomes quiet or reserved, sending shorter replies, delaying messages, or shifting into a cooler tone. It isn't indifference, it's overwhelm. Emotions that go unexpressed don't simply disappear, they intensify. When he feels too much, he retreats to regain composure. It's not rejection, it's recalibration. His heart is moving faster than his logic can manage, and he needs space to steady himself. If you respond with calmness instead of anxiety, with warmth instead of pressure, he begins to trust you instinctively. His defenses soften, his words become more honest, his presence becomes more consistent. But many women interpret this withdrawal as mixed signals. They assume he's flaky or confused. They think he's losing interest. They don't realize that for a man who guards his emotions, this fluctuation is not confusion, it's intensity. It's the natural rhythm of someone wrestling with feelings he's not ready to articulate. When he's near you, he feels something powerful. When he pulls away, he's trying to understand whether those emotions are safe. Once he realizes they are, his behavior shifts again. He asks deeper questions. He pays attention to your moods. He listens with an intensity that feels personal. He remembers things you forgot you told him, not because he's trying to impress you, but because your words linger long after the conversation ends. This is one of the first signs that his desire is evolving into something deeper. His attention becomes less about attraction and more about connection. He wants to understand you, not your curated self, but the genuine, unfiltered parts. He notices when your voice changes. He picks up on the sadness behind your smile. He becomes more protective, not in a controlling way, but in a quiet, attentive way, the kind of attention that makes you feel seen without having to explain yourself. And then there are the digital breadcrumbs. He reacts to your stories. He sends a meme that reminds him of you. He replies to something small you posted, not because the post was significant, but because it gives him a reason to connect. He checks when you're active. He hovers around your online presence like someone testing water, with the tip of his fingers, deciding whether it's safe to go deeper. He may reach out, late at night when his guard is down, or send a random message that appears casual but carries emotional weight. These tiny sparks of initiative reveal a craving he's trying to disguise as friendliness. Another subtle shift begins to emerge too, possession. Not unhealthy jealousy, but a quiet awareness of you in relation to other men. When someone else's name comes up, his eyes sharpen. A joking remark suddenly carries tension. His tone deepens slightly. He listens more carefully to how you talk about other men, as though assessing his place in your emotional world. He'll never admit this. He'll smile through it. But the subtle tightening of his jaw, the way he changes the subject, or the sudden seriousness in his expression all reveal, more than any confession ever could. His desire is no longer something he feels. It's something he protects. What he's guarding, he may not fully understand yet, but it's growing, and it's undeniable. And the deeper it grows, the harder it becomes for him to hide. There comes a point where the signs stop being subtle and begin to shape the very rhythm of your connection. It's no longer just the way he looks at you or the way his energy shifts when you enter a room. Something internal begins to change for him. something he can't quite articulate, but you can feel it. His presence starts threading itself into the smaller corners of your life, the places where genuine emotional attachment begins its quiet work. You start to notice it in the way he tries to stay connected without crossing a line. Maybe he reacts to your posts with a single emoji, just enough to signal attention, but not enough to reveal intent. Or perhaps he sends you a photo, a song, or a quick message saying, "This reminded me of you." These tiny gestures seem casual on the surface, but they're not. They are emotional placeholders, silent ways of saying, "I'm still here. I haven't drifted. I'm thinking about you more than I should." A man who is trying to hide his feelings rarely expresses attraction directly. Instead, he creates small opportunities to be close to you. A message after a long day, a comment that brings him back into your orbit, a question he could have Googled, but he'd rather ask you because it keeps the connection alive. Every small interaction is a thread he's weaving, creating a quiet continuity between you and him. This isn't a game. It's emotional self-protection disguised as simplicity. He convinces himself that he's just being friendly, but deep inside he knows he's maintaining contact because he feels something he can't ignore. And when your responses are kind, warm, or thoughtful, he feels a sense of reassurance he didn't realize he was seeking. Not validation, not ego, reassurance. A deeper confirmation that the connection he feels isn't one-sided or imagined. But this emotional closeness brings something else with it. Subtle jealousy. It appears unexpectedly, like a reflex he can't control. Not the dramatic kind that demands attention, but the quiet tension that flickers across his face when you mention another man. He might remain composed, nodding or smiling as if the topic doesn't affect him. But his eyes change. His tone shifts. His body becomes slightly more still, as though anchoring itself to avoid revealing too much. He may make a joke about it, something lighthearted meant to mask the seriousness underneath. Or he may ask a question that seems harmless, yet carries a layer of curiosity he doesn't want you to detect. It's not possessiveness, it's awareness, a recognition that he's emotionally invested in ways he didn't intend. Men rarely speak about this kind of subtle jealousy because it exposes vulnerability. It hints at attachment, at a quiet fear of losing something he hasn't even admitted wanting. And yet, that flicker of jealousy is one of the clearest signs of hidden desire. It's the emotional equivalent of a heartbeat speeding up involuntarily. He can't stop it. He can only hope you don't notice. But you do. And what you notice even more is how he listens. Truly listens. Not with the distracted nods or casual interest people give when passing time, but with a level of presence that feels personal. He remembers things most people forget. Your favorite scent, the story about your childhood, the small frustrations you mentioned in passing. He pays attention to your tone, your expressions, the emotions behind your words. Listening becomes his act of intimacy. He stores pieces of you not because he's analyzing you, but because he cares enough to let your world linger in his mind. It's quiet, private affection, the kind that grows without announcement. You become a part of his thoughts in ways he doesn't admit to anyone, sometimes not even to himself. And then there's the way he responds to your emotions. When you're upset, his attention sharpens. When you're excited, he mirrors your energy. When something is on your mind, he notices before you say a word. He becomes more attuned to your emotional rhythm than he is to his own. This isn't accidental. It's a sign of emotional grounding, of a connection that's sinking deeper beneath the surface. Men don't invest emotional bandwidth into women they see as temporary. They don't study your moods, recall your stories, or observe your patterns unless something inside them is quietly, steadily shifting. And that shift becomes even more apparent in the moments after he spends time with you. There's a certain silence that surrounds him when he walks away from your presence. A quiet withdrawal that isn't coldness but recalibration. He becomes thoughtful, introspective, even slightly distant, not because he's uninterested, but because the connection affects him more than he expected. You occupy his mind. You stay with him. Your laugh, your expressions, the way you said something, these details, replay in his memory long after the moment ends. This is where desire starts transforming into something else, something deeper, more consuming. He begins experiencing emotional withdrawal in your absence. Not dramatic or obvious, but subtle and undeniable. He may find himself checking your social media not for information, but for closeness. He may hover over your profile, read something twice, or go quiet for a moment when he sees you posting with someone else. It's not mistrust. It's longing, simple, quiet longing. He tries to manage it by distracting himself. He pours himself into work, hobbies, or conversations. But all it takes is one reminder, a song, a photo, a message, and the emotions he tried to push aside come rushing back. He might tell himself, I shouldn't feel this much, yet he does. Because he's no longer thinking about you occasionally. He's thinking about you consistently. His internal world shifts in ways he can't hide. His messages become softer, his tone more genuine. The distance he once maintained starts to shrink. When he reaches out, it's with a warmth that wasn't there before. When he speaks, his voice carries a sincerity even he can't disguise. You begin to feel it, the subtle surrender, the quiet acceptance that he's emotionally invested. He's not confessing anything yet, but he no longer has the same grip on his restraint. And that's when the connection begins to evolve, becoming something neither of you fully saw coming, yet both of you feel. Because desire is no longer just a pull, it's becoming a bond. There's a stage in a man's hidden desire where the connection stops being a fleeting spark and becomes something he carries with him throughout the day, not intentionally, not even consciously, but his thoughts start circling around you in moments he doesn't expect, while he's working, driving, lying in bed, or sitting in silence after a long day. You become the quiet presence in his mind he can't push away, the thought that returns no matter how much he tries to keep things controlled. This is when his emotional focus deepens. He no longer interacts with you just out of curiosity or attraction. His attention becomes anchored. Even the smallest interaction with you has an emotional afterglow. A laugh you share stays with him longer than it should. A message from you lifts his mood more than he'll ever admit. A brief hug or a light touch on his arm lingers in his memory like an imprint. He doesn't plan these reactions, they simply happen. And because they happen beneath the surface, they're harder for him to rationalize or suppress. Men who hide their feelings often assume they're in control until they reach this point, until your presence begins affecting their day in ways they didn't anticipate. Around this time, his behavior subtly shifts again. He becomes more observant, even in ways he doesn't realize. He notices changes others overlook. The slight tiredness in your eyes, the tone of your voice when you're stressed, the way your mood shifts when something is bothering you. And without thinking, he adjusts himself around you. His voice softens. His responses become more thoughtful. His presence becomes more grounded, as though instinctively trying to meet you where you are emotionally. He might not say, "Are you okay?" but he'll send a message, lighten the conversation, or offer comfort in his own quiet way. Men often reveal their care through behavior, not language. And when he cares, even secretly, his entire demeanor becomes more attentive. This is also the stage where his internal conflict becomes strongest. He wants to be close to you, but the depth of what he feels makes him cautious. You'll notice moments where he opens up, just a little, sharing a personal detail or a thought he normally wouldn't reveal. Then shortly after, he retreats again, as if regretting his own honesty. It's not regret about you. It's vulnerability he's unused to navigating. You become a mirror he can't hide from, a presence that makes him aware of his own emotions in a way few people can. And that awareness is both comforting and terrifying. Comforting because he feels seen, terrifying because he feels exposed. But despite his efforts to maintain distance, he keeps coming back. Not because he's confused, but because connection has already taken root. Even silence feels different now. He may respond slower than usual. Not because he's losing interest, but because he's wrestling internally, trying to balance his desire for closeness with his fear of being too open too soon. His timing becomes more emotional than logical. He reaches out when he misses you the most, late at night, during quiet afternoons, or moments of stress. These messages might seem ordinary, but the timing tells the truth. People reach for comfort when their walls are down, and he reaches for you But something else starts to emerge, something deeper than flirtation or jealousy. Emotional dependence. He may not recognize it at first, but he begins to feel calmer when he talks to you, more grounded when he's around you. Your presence brings a sense of peace he doesn't get easily from others. This peace scares him more than the attraction. Attraction can be dismissed as chemistry. Jealousy can be masked as humor. But peace? Peace is intimate. Peace is personal. Peace is a sign of connection, not just desire. A man who feels safe with you emotionally experiences a softness he doesn't feel elsewhere. He lets his guard down in small ways, his posture relaxing, his tone warming, his eyes softening when he looks at you. He laughs more easily. He shares more freely. He becomes more himself. This doesn't happen with just anyone. It happens with someone who touches something deeper in him. At the same time, he becomes more sensitive to your absence. After spending time with you, he might go quiet, not as a withdrawal, but as a response to the emotional high, a moment of recalibration. He may replay certain things you said, wondering what they meant. He may analyze small moments he normally wouldn't notice. His mind becomes more active, not because he doubts you, but because he's trying to make sense of the emotions rising inside him. And this is when he begins showing the most telling signs he never intended to reveal. He checks your social media not because he's insecure, but because he misses you. He stares at your messages longer than necessary before replying. He reopens your conversation thread just to feel close again. Even if he doesn't say anything, he remembers your routines and subtly shows up at times he knows you'll be available. He creates excuses to interact because silence feels too distant. He may even try to distance himself intentionally, convinced that space will help him regain control. But distance only intensifies what he feels. He keeps checking his phone. He wonders why you haven't replied yet. He thinks about messaging you, debates it, resists it, and then messages you anyway, not out of impulse. Out of need. He needs the connection, needs your presence, needs the emotional grounding your energy gives him. This is where his desire deepens into something quieter, more profound, something that feels less like attraction and more like emotional gravity. It's no longer about beautiful moments or playful conversations. It's about the way you make him feel like he can breathe differently, more freely, more fully, more honestly. The closer he feels to you, the more he begins to reveal pieces of himself he usually keeps locked away, not through grand declarations, but through the authenticity of his presence, the softness in his voice, the vulnerability in his silences, the sincerity in his eyes. Even if he tries to hide it, his energy tells the truth. You've become part of his emotional landscape. And once a man lets you into that internal space, even quietly, nothing feels the same for him again. There comes a moment when hidden desire stops being something he can manage privately and becomes something that shapes his inner world, a quiet turning point. He may not speak it, he may not even fully understand it, but something inside him shifts. He begins to feel you not just when you're present, but also when you're absent. Your presence becomes a kind of emotional imprint that follows him long after the conversation has ended. He thinks about you in the mornings, before the day begins. He wonders how you're doing late at night, long after he's supposed to be asleep. You slip into the quiet spaces of his mind where only significant things reside. He can't explain why the thought of you brings him calm, or why the idea of losing connection with you creates a small ache he doesn't want to admit exists. But it does exist, and the more he tries to keep his feelings hidden, the deeper they root themselves. This is where the emotional landscape becomes unmistakably clear. He doesn't just enjoy your presence, he begins to rely on it in subtle ways. The way you speak to him, the way you understand him without needing long explanations, the way he feels more grounded when he hears from you. All of it starts to matter more than he wants to admit. He finds himself replaying conversations, not to analyze your words, but to revisit the feeling they gave him. A moment of laughter, a quiet pause, a look you shared that lingered longer than necessary. These aren't memories he tries to keep. They simply stay with him. They become small emotional echoes that bring warmth when his mind drifts. And then there's the stillness. After a day of being around you, he feels it like a soft emptiness, a quiet longing, almost like withdrawal. Not the dramatic kind, but the subtle discomfort that comes when someone who brings him peace isn't close. He may bury himself in work or distractions, convincing himself that he's fine, but the truth is simple. He misses you. He doesn't miss you because he's lonely. He misses you because your energy changes something inside him. You shift his emotional state without trying, not through grand gestures, but through presence, through the softness in how you listen, the way you respond, the way your laughter breaks tension he didn't know he was holding. This is what creates a deeper craving, not a craving of possession, but of alignment. When a man feels emotionally safe with a woman, he starts associating her presence with inner balance. She becomes the place where his guard comes down naturally, where his thoughts clear, where the weight he carries feels lighter. But he doesn't realize this immediately. It shows up in smaller, quieter behaviors first. He checks your messages more often. He pays attention to when you're online. He notices when your tone shifts or when your responses feel different. He senses your mood before you say a word. This isn't overthinking. It's emotional attunement. He's tuned into you more deeply than he is with others. And then something even more revealing happens. He starts sharing more of himself without meaning to. He tells you things he doesn't tell others. Small personal details at first, then bigger truths. His fears, his past, his dreams, the thoughts he usually keeps to himself. He doesn't plan these disclosures. They slip out in moments of emotional comfort. You create a space where he doesn't feel the need to pretend, where honesty feels natural. He may catch himself afterward and pull back briefly, trying to regain the emotional distance he thinks he needs. But the attempt never lasts long. His subconscious already knows what his mind is slow to accept. You feel like home to him, and no matter how carefully he tries to manage his emotions, he keeps returning to the place where he feels understood. This is where craving transforms into connection, not the chaotic kind that burns fast and fades, not infatuation that flickers with uncertainty, but the kind that brings steadiness, that grows stronger in silence, that deepens through small, consistent moments, connection that doesn't demand effort, only presence. He begins to crave not your attention but your energy, not your validation but your peace, not your admiration but the way you see him without judgment. This is the kind of craving a man can't shake off, no matter how disciplined or guarded he is, because it isn't rooted in desire alone. It's rooted in resonance, and resonance is rare. That's why he returns even after distance, why he softens even after trying to be cold, why he reappears in your messages after convincing himself to stay away. He wants the calm your presence brings him, the comfort, the sense of being understood without having to explain himself. Men don't confess this openly, but it's one of the deepest truths of masculine desire. They crave the woman who brings peace to their internal world more than anything else. When he reaches this stage, his behavior becomes unmistakable. He's gentle in ways he never admits. He's protective in ways he downplays. He's present in ways that reveal emotional investment, not obligation. His messages become less guarded, more thoughtful. His tone carries warmth he no longer tries to hide. He starts checking in on you, not for information, but because he genuinely cares how you're doing. And when he asks, "How was your day?" it's not small talk. It's emotional presence. It's curiosity. It's connection. He might not be ready to confess anything, but his actions tell the story he's not yet ready to speak. The softness in his eyes, the hesitation in his voice, the way he touches your back lightly when passing you, the way he listens like every word matters, they reveal everything. When he looks at you, there's a tenderness he tries to mask with a neutral expression. When he laughs with you, there's a lightness he doesn't feel with others. When he speaks to you, there's a sincerity in his tone that slips through no matter how carefully he tries to control it. He no longer craves you because of attraction alone. He craves you because of how he feels when he's around you. Because you bring out a version of himself he likes. Because you awaken emotions he's tried to bury. Because the connection feels effortless and real. And real is something he can't resist. You become the quiet constant in his mind. the softness in his day, the calm beneath his chaos, the presence he doesn't want to lose. He may never express it in grand sweeping words, but his energy reveals what his mouth conceals. You matter to him deeply, more than he planned, more than he expected, more than he knows how to say.